you know, and you realize that when you're number one, more people want to talk to you. When you're number one, you make more money, and you become important, and that's who you become. And I realized what while I was in prison, in solitary in particular, that being number one and being Marion Jones meant nothing in there. It's an understatement to say it was a humbling experience. But in the same breath, I have to say that it was a blessing. It was a blessing for me.
What did you learn about yourself?
Well, that I had to figure out who I was. Not Marion Jones, the superstar athlete, the pretty smile, the charm, and all that. Who am I? Why did I make certain choices? And now, more importantly, now how do I move forward? You know, it forced me to figure out, some bad choices, but it's not over. Things can and will get better if I don't just sit on my tail.
Listening to you, in a funny way, finding yourself might be something you never did if you had just carried on being Marion Jones superstar.
You're so right. It was. And it is. Every time I have to speak about it, it is a form of healing. And you get to a point, and I think a lot of people can relate to this. When you carry such a burden for so long, whatever it might be, a lie, a secret, when you're finally able to let it all out, regardless of what the consequences may be, and in my case, they were certainly severe, and we knew that they were going to be, not as severe as they were, but it's a total release. And I knew that I couldn't carry it any longer. You know, I was married, I had a child, and was about to have another one, and I found myself telling my oldest son, when you do certain things, you make a mistake, you move on, but then I turn around and I wasn't living it. I was being a hypocrite. And when you have kids, as you know, things become a lot clearer in your life. And you realize that everything you say and do can affect them, and in my case, everything you don't do or say. And I couldn't live with that. I love my kids too much for that.
How difficult was the conversation with your mother when you had to finally have her and look her in the eye and say, it's true?
Well, extremely thankful. Because she was, and still is, my biggest support. To know that you let down somebody who loves you regardless. Who loved me and loves me regardless of the fact that I turned my back. It was hard. Not too long after I pled guilty. And it was simple. It wasn't anything very complicated. Just a simple embrace and the whispered sound of my mom saying, "I love you," no matter what. So it was hard, painful. And even when I still talk to her and I see her, and my family and my close friends, I feel a sense of guilt. And as a mom, it's tough because she can't do anything about it. I'm her baby. And her baby's an adult and makes certain choices, and all she can do from a distance is pray and love on me as much as she can. She can't do anything about it. And so I can only imagine as a mother myself that feeling. Throughout the journey and throughout everything, there were moments that she was angry because she could see me making poor choices, and would share with me. And that's, I think, why I started to become more and more just...
Why were you attracted to the bad guys?
I think I saw something in them that perhaps I was lacking in my childhood. As I mentioned, my mom was a single mom, and so my biological father was never part of my life.
Did you have any relationship with him at all? So you was craving a kind of father substitute, possibly?
Possibly. Yeah, I think that's safe to say that.
Is he still alive, your biological brother?
No, he's passed. I got a call from a friend of his saying that he had passed. And he hadn't been in contact with me for 15 years. And then this friend tells me that, but he kept an album of all my accomplishments. And I went to the funeral, and I sat on the front row in the church, and because I was his only offspring. But yet I saw young people getting up, speaking about him, saying he was such a father to them. And I couldn't say that. And so it was just really, 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 really difficult for me to deal with all that. So I'm not saying that's the reason poor choice in relationships, but possibly it contributed. I made my first Olympic team. And to me, the biggest issue was not asking certain questions and not asking the coach, well, what are you giving me? Why all this? I certainly felt and will feel to this day that my God-given ability would have.
You knew something was going on. Was it more a case of, I'm not going to ask any questions here, but in the back of my head, this is a dangerous situation I'm in? Is that the honest truth?
No, I'm not going to agree with you in that regard. I think that because I know I had, people would say, well, you had to have known something was going on because you were just beating people by so much. You were just annihilating people. But to me, that's what I've been doing ever since I was young. Nothing happened during that time to tell me that I had been given something that was going to make me that much better. When I was sentenced, the judge said certain things during the 2-hour proceeding, saying that a top caliber athlete has to know certain changes in their body. And I had to sit there, of course, and I had to listen. But the reality in my world and in my life is I didn't see any changes. I didn't see any changes that would have alerted me to certain things. And yeah, I should have asked more questions, but I trusted my circle. I surrounded myself I was in this bubble, and I felt in my heart, these people, they're not going to do anything to harm me. I didn't. It was tough to hand back the medal, certainly. But I think that a lot of people overestimate the hardware. I'll be honest. To me, it's the memory.
When the Olympics starts this summer, how will your emotions be dealing with that? I mean, are you able to deal with it in a measured way now, or you still get that awful sense of what might have been?
No, not at all. Not at all. I have good memories from my Olympic experience, and I'm a fan of sport. I have a passion for sport. I sit in front of the television with my kids. We cheer on. We have our favorites. It's not a time that it's a somber time for me.
And to any young American athlete who is in the squad, who may be either abusing drugs, keeping it secret, or is tempted to, or believes it's the only way they can win a gold medal, there's nobody better to ask. What advice would you give them?
First of all, think about the consequences of your choices. Before they make those type of decisions, take a step back and develop this message of take a break. Take a break.
I was going to ask you about that, finally, because this is something you're very involved with, and it's educating young kids, I guess, who may get a break about how to take it.
Yeah. Well, and the big part is that it's not just young people. Anybody. You see all the time in the news, CEOs of companies who make a wrong choice. And if they had just taken a break, if they had just taken a step back and thought about all of this, got proper advice from people who'll give it to them straight, not people who'll just pat them on the back, if they just take a break and really think about the consequences of their choices, then they'll be able to make better choices in their own lives. And